So, I mean, as far as like credit goes, it's a double-edged sword, right? It can be good for helping scale businesses and do things that help push your life further, but obviously it can hurt you pretty badly, which it has burned most people because I would say like they don't understand how to utilize it correctly.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sledgehammers in the Office podcast, where we celebrate the heavy hitters on the job site and in the office. Today, I'm joined, as always, by Mason Oxendale, and today we have a special guest, Mr. Sean David Clark. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be here.
All right, so we start with our guests just saying, what do you do? What's the path that kind of got you there? If you describe a little bit about the company and kind of your role, and then the team in there, and then we'll kind of just take it from there.
Yeah, sounds good. So right now I would say, I guess, a serial entrepreneur. I have a few different businesses, mostly in the credit space. So whether that's with credit repair or funding. And then I recently got into, within the last year or so, owning a CrossFit gym. So that one's a little off the mark of what my current businesses are as far as credit goes. But credit kind of led me into the ability to open up multiple businesses. And so I got into it essentially from just knowledge, trying to find out what I wanted to do after my baseball career ended, and, finding information that would allow me to achieve my eventual goals of, being able to have that financial freedom. And so, once I found a good mentor that I thought would get me to the right place, I dove into credit, learned credit repair, and then funding subsequently. And one thing led to another, started everything I have from the ground up, and then, started building out multiple businesses.
Nice. Where'd you play baseball at?
I bounced around a little bit. So I went to Sacramento State out of high school. Didn't like it there, so I ended up bouncing back to a JC to try and go somewhere else, and then ended up finishing up at Hope International University in Fullerton, California. Goal was to be drafted. I had a few potential opportunities. Me and our center fielder were supposed to go together with the Marlins, and then I had a private tryout down at Petco Park. Unfortunately, never got drafted, so once I didn't get drafted, I kind of cut the ties. I was like, I could have tried to continue to play like some people. They either go overseas or try to do independent ball. But with that, it's you're grinding still 8 hours a day trying to make this dream come true. And it's a lot tougher road than just trying to get drafted and, go through the whole system directly. So I was like, I don't really want to stay in basically a frat house with 12 other baseball guys, no, income really. I was like, I'd rather try and build something for myself and get ahead of the game than, wait till I'm 27, 28 when I finally realized that this dream's not going to come true, and then start from zero. So I was like, I'll just jump ahead. And
because a lot of those guys, they 27, 28, they finally figure it out, but you don't get paid well.
No, I mean, even if you do get drafted, people in the minor, if you don't get a large signing bonus, you're making peanuts. And it's still tough for even those people who get drafted directly from teams. Some of them still sleep in their cars. And then, they, work all the way up until they're 27, 28, depending how long they're in the system for. And then once they're done, they're like, all right, well, now what do I do? A lot of them either skipped college or just had no other experience besides playing baseball. And so these guys come out of the system and, are basically lost with where to go.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's crazy.
So how'd you make that transition then to it's the credit repair area? One of the things that we've kind of found, and I've enjoyed with the podcast, is talking to people where it's no one really grows up to be I want to be someone in the credit repair space or anything like that. We've had a whole bunch of people insurance or anything like that. It's no one grows up being I'm going to be an astronaut. I'm going to be a credit repair guy. How did that connection get made? And then if you don't mind, I'll have you pull the microphone just a little closer.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, kind of just fell into it. When that whole baseball dream ended, I essentially was fairly lost for a while. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had went to college to get my business management degree, so I knew that I wanted to do something within the business realm. I had actually started out when I was in JC, taking my kinesiology prereqs to go into like sports medicine. And then I was like, no, I don't really want to go that route. Like I'd rather maybe run and operate businesses instead. And so I started getting into the business management space. But yeah, after I didn't get drafted, I remember sitting on my phone watching the draft go down. And I mean, it's 50 rounds.
Yeah, that's not a
at
little
the time.
draft.
Yeah, it was a super long draft. It was like 3-4 days long. And I was like, man, I got to at least go in the last round, like if anything.
Yeah.
Because I had been talking to so many people. And so, yeah, when I didn't see my name called, I was like, all right, well, time to find something else. But it took me, I don't know, probably at least 1.5 years, 2 years to really find something that got my interest that I could do. And, you know, being a baseball player and having that work ethic just to try and get drafted is something that's helped me in what I do now, because it takes a lot of work ethic to do that. But, I mean, while I was lost in that period, I was just basically trying to find and consume as much information as possible, looking to different people on social media, seeing what they were doing, you know, what people would call influencers. And so you're trying to go through all these different avenues and see essentially what sticks. And so I found a lot of stuff going on in the credit space. And I'm like, this is interesting, because I always liked finance. I liked trading. I actually got into trading before anything else after I finished baseball. But I started taking some courses in credit and just trying to figure out like how to leverage it, how to use it, because I knew that credit was important to get ahead either in personal life or business life. Credit is going to give you the ability to get a lot farther than you could on your own with just the cash you have. And so once I started going down those rabbit holes of the courses and everything else like that, I ended up finding, like I said, the mentor that got me started into the space. And once I found that mentor, I was like, okay, I'm going to just go all in on this and see what happens.
Because you don't have to have like a, you know, like a license and all this stuff. It's more of just like figuring everything out and then getting people to pay you for your knowledge and then being successful with it.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. That's a lot of research, I feel like.
It can be. I mean, the credit space goes so deep. I mean, I still learn new stuff every single day, and I've been doing it for 5 years now. So yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of research, testing, trial and error, and, you know, finding what does and doesn't work. And, you know, when stuff doesn't work or stuff doesn't go good, I mean, with credit, you're playing with other people's financial livelihoods. And so it's like, you want to get the job done in the best manner possible, because, you know, at the end of the day, like, you do feel for some people, like they're trying to get a house, trying to get a car, they're trying to, you know, make a better situation of what they are currently in, and they're relying on you to do it. And so it's good and bad as far as like being stressed to help those people get to where they want to go, because sometimes you only have so much control over what you can and can't do for them.
What's the turnaround time from when someone starts working on their credit to when they're going to see the change on it? Because like we dealt with people who are trying to buy homes, and obviously when they're talking to us, they're like, we want to go right now. And it's like, well, your credit needs some work before we can get you qualified for a 30-year mortgage.
Yeah.
How long does that process take start to finish?
I mean, I wish there was a straightforward answer to it, but it completely depends on like what's on their file, how much they need done as far as like how many negatives they have. Do they have bankruptcies? Do they have a lot of charge-offs, a lot of collections? So, I mean, it's variable in the sense of how bad they've messed up in the past. And your credit report is essentially your financial report card. Like that's how banks are going to look at you and determine whether or not you can do certain things like buy a house and get credit. But I would say like when someone joins the program, regardless of kind of where they are credit-wise, I've been able to help people in under 30 days, and then worst case, around 6 months. But those are usually because the clients are lacking in communication. They're not always doing exactly what we ask them to do. They're getting new negatives onto the report. But if a client is adamant about getting their credit fixed and doing what we need them to do, I mean, it's a very, very quick process. And I would say that average could be 30 to 90 days.
Yeah,
if
it
everything
depends
goes right.
depends on them. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it takes two to tango. I mean, it's a partnership, right? Like, I can't do everything for them, and they have to help out in some form or another. Like, they messed it up. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to help you fix what you created. And what a lot of people don't realize too is like, whether the repair process took 30 days or a full year, those negative items are going to be on the report for up to 7+ years.
Yeah.
So it's like, regardless of how long it takes, it's a lot quicker than 7 years, and waiting for that to come off and, be able to get approved.
I mean, I struggle to get clients just to even call somebody to get their credit. Be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do this. I was like, dude, talk to somebody. Figure. I mean, so I can imagine it pulling teeth just to get them to talk to people who know about it. But then once they're in the program, especially getting them to stay on a program longer than 30 days has to be kind of difficult.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, we're dealing like obviously with a lot of sensitive personal information. So social, address, everything. We know everything about that person. So, I mean, that can be a sticky point for some people. I mean, I haven't really had too many people say like, I'm not giving you anything. Like, why do you need it? A lot of them kind of understand like what they have to do in order to get what they need.
Yeah.
And it's like at the end of the day too, if you have bad credit, nobody's going to steal your identity. Like they're not going to be able to do anything with it, even if they had it. So it's like, we're not here to take anything. It's like, we're here to help you. But, some people care more than others about giving that kind of information out as well.
So how many people are working with you currently? Is it just you by yourself? As far as I understood it, there's a gentleman that we both know that's working with you, or am I mistaken on that?
No, yeah, you're completely right. I've had a team as big as 20, and then I've really leaned out in the last couple of months. So I'm probably working with a team about like 8 to 10. And that was just because, systems got better, things were able to become more efficient, and so I was able to kind of cut my overhead as far as work goes on some files. So yeah, I mean, between all 2-3 businesses, I mean, I probably have around 15 to 20 people total, but per business, I'd say I have like a core group of about 5 to 8 people.
Okay, so keying off that real quick, when I was doing a little bit of research, I look up Sean Clark, and there's a million Sean Clarks that pop up on the internet. And I was like, this is a John Smith name.
Yeah.
So when I put in the Sean David Clark, that's when things started popping up, and I was like, all right, here we go. And then I started finding like articles, and then I was like, by the end of it, I was like, wait a minute, this guy seems attached to like 2 to 3 businesses as far as I can tell. So what are each of those businesses? Because it seemed like we've talked about the credit repair. I saw you mentioned, and then I also saw, I think there's one for business funding. And then is there one for helping other people grow and scale their credit repair businesses as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, really anything inside of the credit space is what I deal with. So whether it's from fixing personal credit to helping people get personal funding to businesses getting business funding, I started out with my own repair company. That's what I got into the game with, was just helping the average everyday person get their credit fixed and then get funding, whether it's for investments or whatever they needed to use the capital for. So starting with that had then led me into doing it for other businesses. So moving more from B2C, business to consumer, to B2B, business to business, which is where I really like to be, because I'd rather deal with business owners that need help on fulfilling on the back end than dealing with the always everyday consumer, because dealing with businesses directly cuts down the amount of people I have to deal with. And usually the business owners are easier to communicate with, they're easier to deal with, and then I can have my team handle their clients that they send in for us to handle on the back end. And so I don't really handle too much as far as direct repair, unless somebody asks me directly for it or refers them to me, then yeah, I'm going to help them out. But I mostly deal with the back end of multiple repair companies or funding companies, just because then I don't have to go out and market myself. I don't have to go try and find people every single day. It's like, once you build a good relationship with those business owners, they bring you all the clients you need. You just help them either get clients or get the results so they can bring more in. And then, your business is going to subsequently grow when they grow. So it's a win-win situation.
So if I understand correctly, there's a credit repair business that's going to work with you and you help them with the clients that they have inside their business? Mm-hmm. Okay. Gotcha.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, we call it a white label. So essentially on the front end, it looks like their business through and through. There's kind of a curtain, as we like to call it, over the client's eyes to where they would never be able to tell it was us on the back end. So we act as their company through and through, whether it's customer support or whenever we're talking to them. And so that way they get the feel of being the business owners and running everything, running the entire show. Client never suspects a thing. And yeah, I mean, it helps a lot because, I mean, clients, especially when you're dealing with sensitive information, don't want to be giving it to one person and then, you know, finding out it's going through somebody completely different that they have no idea who's dealing with, who they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Oh, and don't forget, he's got the gym business.
Yeah.
So 4.
But we're going to get to that at the end.
Okay.
So when you're working with those companies, as far as, is it the biggest thing just more creating a buffer between you and the immediate, I guess, consumer on the other end, allowing you guys to say, hey, we're going to niche down the amount of work that we're doing to say, hey, this is our lane, this is what we thrive in, and just really kind of putting the pedal to the metal on that. Let the other businesses be the marketing front that feeds everything on the backside, and it's just kind of a big loop inside of that.
Yeah, I mean, essentially that's how it works. Because I would say, like, especially in credit repair, like, it's such a monotonous job task that a lot of people don't want to handle the back end because one, clients can definitely be a headache at times, like always having to ask them to either update their proof of address, update their credit monitoring details. And so that's tedious in itself, but having to continuously submit rounds, check the reports, and kind of do all of the little dirty work, most people don't want to deal with that, especially at scale with a lot of clients. Like, I mean, we currently have about probably 800 to 900 people in our pipeline. And so dealing with that many people is a headache for most. And a lot of people jump out of the space because they just get tired of dealing with those people. Because, you know, unfortunately as it is, like, not all people with bad credit are bad people, but there are a lot of bad apples that have bad credit that are headaches to deal with. And so it's like, they messed up their credit and then they want you to fix it overnight. And when that doesn't happen, they get angry, they get upset, and they try and put the blame on you when really they're the ones that mess things up. And so, yeah, most people just want to sell on the front end, market on the front end, let somebody else deal with the dirty work on the back end. So they kind of get all the glory when things go good, and not have to deal with all of the tedious, monotonous stuff. So that way they can scale and obviously make more money, you know, with the whole thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the back end, yeah. So pretty much you do all the work because the back end is essentially what repairs the credit.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, we deal with all the back end work, customer support. So, you know, we're submitting files, we're auditing files, we're dealing with all the angry customers. I mean, really, the white labels or the business owners that we work with have it pretty easy because all they have to do is go out and show results, get people, and sell the people on the service, which, I mean, I would say credit repair is easy to sell. I mean, it's definitely something that, like, if someone needs credit repair, it's a need, not a want. It's not the next new iPhone. It's something they need to have done to get them into their house or, you know, whatever they're looking to.
So I can't call you and be like, hey, I got $500. Can you take this off my credit?
It depends what it is, you know?
Okay.
Like I said, there are certain situations, but I mean, yeah, it depends as far as like price goes.
What's the put you on the spot a little bit, but like what's like the most simplest, easiest thing that you've done for somebody? It's like, hey, I got this 500 credit score. I would like to get it up, and you looked at it and it was like a click of a button or something, and it went up 100 points. Like, what was like an example of something real easy that,
or is
obviously
it never like that?
It's easy to you, but it's just like, oh, you just do this.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say like collections or closed accounts, anything.
Oh, closing accounts.
Yeah, closed accounts. So like old charge-offs or, I mean, really anything that is closed on the report is easy to get off, especially when it's not attached to their current address. So if it's attached to an old address that they used to live at, that's still on the report, I mean, at that point, I can just remove the personal information. So remove the address from all 3 bureaus, dispute the account, and then the account will come off within 30 days.
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, realistically, credit repair just comes down to people's personal information, because there is a congressional set of codes, such as the FCRA, which is the Fair Credit Reporting Act, that protects consumers inside of the credit space. So that basically governs how bureaus, creditors, and other people are allowed to report financial information to the credit bureaus, and a bunch of much deeper things that we could go on and on about. But in that FCRA, it states that if something on the credit report is not 100% true, compliant, or accurately reporting on the report, it can't legally be there. And so one of the ways that these bureaus, when you're disputing a negative item, verify that it's yours is with your address or your social or your birthday. But if we're able to get the address off, and that address is no longer the report that was attached to the account, it's no longer 100% verifiably accurate. And so now it can't legally be on the report. And that's one of the loopholes that we utilize to get people's credit clean. So that's the easiest way to do it. But I would say like dealing with open accounts that have late payments on it is the hardest, because you're trying to overturn a late payment with the creditor, which most of the time they don't want to do. So I would say that's the hardest, and then the easiest situations.
Yeah. So basically everything on your credit report, you have to find a way to make it not 100% true.
Yes and no.
Well,
I mean,
the easy way.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, obviously, people's information gets mixed and merged with others, and also too, I mean, identity theft is very common, as unfortunate as that is. And so in order to protect people's identities, you got to clean up that old information. Like somebody that moved into that previous address could have got your information somehow and started opening up cards or opening up accounts that you had no idea about. And so it's, like I said, a loophole that we leverage to help clean people's credit. But, at the end of the day, it's like we can't force anybody to change their information. It's just one of the laws that we utilize to get the results quickly.
Yeah, I've got a buddy who has, although I don't know why he's not the second, but he has the same first and last name as his dad. Not the same middle name, but the exact same initial. So, and his dad isn't the best financially make this decisions. So he's constantly his credit's gone up and down so many times because his dad's stuff goes on his. So.
Yep. And that's mixed and merged information, which happens very commonly. It happened to me. Like me and my dad have the same exact name except for the middle name.
Yeah.
And I've had collections come on my report that were his. And, I actually was on a call with somebody today where he said the same thing. He was like, my information got mixed with my dad's when I was 14 years old. And so when I found out my credit was at a 410, I figured out that all of this debt was his. He's like, it wasn't even mine. And he was actually a football player too, which it was funny because he was talking to me about it. He was like, yeah, man, I went into a meeting with the Patriots and they asked me 2 things. They said, why you wear so much jewelry? Which he was like, the necklace I had and the bracelet I had were my dad's. So he answered that. And then they were like, why do you have a 410 credit score? And he was like, what do you mean? They were like, well, we've never seen somebody who can bench press more than their credit. And he's like, what? So he went and checked it. And then, he found out that his information had been mixed and merged with his dad's. And all of this, negative debt and collections were on his credit report that he had no idea about.
That's crazy.
So very common.
What was the process you went through as far as scaling? You decided at a certain point, hey, all right, I'm going to go do this. But then to get to the point where you have up to a team of 20, you've got 3 businesses, each are staffed pretty considerably for a small business inside of that. What are the steps that you had to go through to be able to get the team to that point?
I mean, a lot of dirty work on my end. Late nights. I mean, you have to, as at least the owner of the business, build out the systems and processes for your employees and your staff to be able to succeed. So in a sense, you have to figure out a way to duplicate yourself so that way somebody can fill in for the roles that they're best at. So like when I have, say, a coach for my gym, my time's more valuable on the back end building the systems, trying to get more people into the gym than me spending all my time coaching the classes. And so same thing with all the other businesses. My time is more valuable networking with business owners and other people that will bring more money into the business than sending files out, right? So it's about building your standard operating procedures, teaching somebody else to do the job that is less valuable than the job you are trying to do, which is bring money into the business. Because if you can bring money into the business, everybody gets their job. They can put food on their table because now you're responsible for all of those employees. And me, say like coaching a class or sending out a credit file doesn't bring money into the business. You know, that's something that can be delegated to other people that are better at it, or you know, things that I can do to increase my time to do the things that grow the business as a whole.
How long was it before you brought someone in as an employee and started building out the systems that you had in place?
I mean, it probably took me at least a year when I started my first business to bring on my first set of employees, simply because when you're first going through it, it's like, you know, you need to start getting employees, because as your business grows and scales, you're not able to continuously do everything and wear every single hat in the business, because then you'll end up getting burnt out and not being able to do it for very long. And so coming to that realization, I hired my first employee about a year in, and it was actually because one of my friends didn't make me, but highly suggested that I had hired somebody to handle the volume and the scale that was starting to come in. Because if you're still trying to wear every hat in the business, either communication diminishes or the results diminish, the product diminishes. And so being able to hire somebody to duplicate yourself to keep those results and communication high are very important to having the business continue to grow and scale. And so I actually have a lot of employees that work in the Philippines. So I have probably 7 or 8 VA employees that work in the Philippines, and their schedule is a little bit different, but in their culture, it's very, I would say, common for them to be working online and helping online businesses run, grow, scale, do all of the, I call it grunt work. And the great thing about the employees in the Philippines that I have is their culture is very loyal, very polite. And I also don't have to worry about, at least in America, we're all very entrepreneurial minded. I don't have to worry about them trying to take the information or take the clients that I have and go try and start their own business. And so that's one thing that has helped me a lot, is being able to trust my employees and not worry about them go out and try and, you know, start their own business. Because I actually, my very first employee I ever had did do that. He got a lot of information that I gave him.
Was this your friend?
No, it wasn't a friend. It was somebody that was referred to me. But yeah, he got some information and thought he could go out on his own and do it. And yeah, I was like, all right, well, learn my lesson.
Yeah.
And one of the things that one of my mentors taught me was, you always teach someone what they need to know, but you don't teach them everything about the business, at least. So you teach them one specific skill, make sure they can handle that skill, and then you teach somebody else to handle something else. So that way, you know, that kind of situation can't happen quite as frequently or at all. Because if they don't know how to do everything, then they can't really start their own business, because they don't know all the ticking parts of what they need to do.
Now, when you did you go into this like, oh hey, I can make, you know, good money helping people with their credit, or did you go in it with the mindset of, hey, let's just like go balls to the wall for the next year and a half, do it, be good at it, and then just start growing a business and hiring people? Was that like, which mindset did you just fall into having the business, or did you have that mindset like, let's build something in the next year or two?
I mean, I would say it was probably a little bit of both. Okay. So when I got into starting my business, I was working 2 jobs in Southern California. I was valeting and I was working at a nutrition supplement shop. And so even with working 2 jobs, I was only making like $3,000 a month in Southern California. My rent was $2,100.
Yeah.
But I was splitting that with like two or three people.
Yeah,
so
I was like, that sounds like you got one room in a house. For
it was
2100.
literally a 1-bedroom apartment. It was me, my now wife, and then one of my old baseball teammates. We were all, he slept in the living room. We slept in the actual bedroom, and we ended up making it work. But, working 2 jobs, and I was literally working almost 10, 12 hours a day to make literally nothing. And I still had, student loans coming up and all the just normal everyday bills, etc. So I was like, I got to figure something out. And once I started to acquire more and more information about the entrepreneurial journey, credit, business, I was like, this is something I want to do. I had finally thought I found something I could put all the effort I had put into baseball into something that I enjoyed, which was these businesses. And so I didn't really go, I would say, balls to the wall until I actually moved here to Arizona. Because once I moved here to Arizona, I didn't have a plan B, right? Like my wife's or my father-in-law set me up with a couple of interviews, one for insurance, I believe it was business insurance, and then the other one was to work at the credit union he was the CEO of. I think I was a business relationship manager. And luckily, that was like right when COVID hit, but interviews didn't work out, which was good because that basically told me that, hey, you got to figure this out. Like, you got to make this work. And so then I was able to put all that time and energy into the businesses, growing the businesses, reaching out to people, and making it work. But I mean, I really got into the credit space because, one, I wanted to help my parents and help my friends and family with their credit, because I watched my parents go through 2 bankruptcies. And so watching them go through that as a young kid, it's like, well, you feel helpless in a sense because you can't help them with anything. And so I actually did help my parents fix their credit. But my biggest why was, like I said, to help them and then help other people in that same or similar situation. And the value you provide is usually the amount of money you're able to make. So when you solve a problem, people are going to pay you to solve that problem. And so I would say money is just the score on the scoreboard. Like, the more people you help, the more money you'll make. And, eventually too, like, your network is your net worth, all the cliches, like, as sometimes dumb as they sound, they're all very, very true. One thing, like, another saying I love too by Bradley is, like, the more hands you shake, the more money you make, right? Like, the more, because all the money in the world, as Grant Cardone says, is in the hands, pockets, and wallets of everybody else, right? Like, you can't go on to the money tree and pull off $100 bill whenever you want. Like, you have to go help people so that way they can give you monetary value in return for the service value that you provide.
Just like when you buy a car. Like, I think on one of the articles we were standing next to a really nice car. I don't know if it was yours or not, but like, when you buy those high-end cars, like, you're buying it because you know what it can do. So
yeah,
you're the Ferrari, right, in the credit repair industry.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I've definitely helped a lot of people with their credit. I've helped a lot of business owners scale their credit companies, and so, like I said, I mean, that in turn allows me to do a lot of other things, whether some fun stuff personally or building out more businesses. So, yeah, I mean, just like I said, being able to provide a lot of value to other people is what has led me to get a great monetary return, ROI.
How do you split your time between the different companies in terms of, like, there's a lot of overlap, so it would make sense that it's probably not a rigid, I spend the first 3 hours doing this, next 3 hours, and put that on repeat day after day. So do you have a prioritization that you go through as far as, is it fire pops up, your job is to put it out? Is it a lot of, there's systems and processes put in place, so there's a management system inside of that, whereas your job might be more the client acquisition and business relationships inside of that? Or how do you try and structure your time to make sure that those aren't slipping and all growing at the same time?
I mean, it's tough juggling just one business, but trying to juggle 3 is very, very hard. I wish I could say I had a structured day, but usually it's just handling the biggest fire. Yeah. Every other day it's like, all right, what fire do I need to put out today? Or, what task do I need to handle that's either going to push the business forward or keep the business from burning down. And so a lot of the times it's just putting things on a to-do list and finding out like, can I delegate this or do I have to do this myself? Can I build a process around this so somebody else can do it? And kind of just going through my day in that sense. I've tried to do structured days and have a routine and do all of those things. But, when you're running, especially multiple businesses, you don't know what's going to always happen next. Like just for instance, power went out at the gym midday one time and I was like, okay, well now I got to handle this.
Yeah.
And you could have a plan, but there's so many things that happen that you can't predict and you can't plan, especially in business. You get a rogue client or your employee leaves, things that you, like I said, just can't predict. You have to kind of plan for, or, plan for the worst, hope for the best a lot of the time. So, I'd say I wing it, a lot in my routine. It's just kind of like, all right, well, let's get this done today, or, oh, this became more important. That goes to the top of the list. And so, yeah, it's like I said, very tough. I mean, for a while when I started my businesses, I just got back onto like at least a consistent routine. But for the first, I would say for the last 1 to 2 years, I was pulling an all-nighter almost every other night. So I would literally stay up, work for 24 to 36 hours, sleep for 12 hours, rinse and repeat. I did that for a year straight. And it finally got to the point where it crushed my mental health. It crushed my physical health. I was actually extremely depressed for a while because, obviously that's not good mentally or physically. And I was very surprised, like, nothing major happened. Like, I didn't have any catastrophic physical events that you would expect to kind of have, like, during that sort of period. But, it's like I said, very tough when you're dealing with multiple businesses and you feel like all this weight's on your shoulder because you have employees depending on you to pay them their payroll and be able to put food on their table. And like I said, it's dealing with the weight of that and trying to also maintain growing the business and pushing your own goals forward. And so with that, it's like I finally realized, obviously this is not sustainable. Like, I'm just digging myself an early grave if I continue with this. So finally getting back onto at least some sort of good routine of sleeping, eating, working out. Actually, has recently came within the last 75 days because I just did the 75 hard that Andy Frisella put out, and that kind of forced me back into working out, eating right, drinking enough water, and just ultimately getting myself back into the healthy lifestyle and habits that I had before I started the businesses. And I essentially got consumed in the hustle culture of like, I can sleep when I'm dead. Well, if you don't sleep, you will be dead, type of thing. So coming to that realization was good. I wish I had came to it a little bit earlier, but at the same time, it's like when all of that stuff is going on and you feel all this weight and pressure to succeed, and I'm extremely hard on myself with a lot of stuff, but it can drive a lot of people crazy, and I think it burns a lot of people out too, because especially on social media, it's like you got to work all the time, every single day to get to the top, and that's not always technically true. Like, you do have to work a lot, but you have to do it smartly, and that's through leveraging people and leveraging your time and building systems and operations so that way you can have the time to take care of yourself.
How much have you utilized, or at all, the ChatGPT stuff?
I've definitely gotten into AI quite a bit. I actually built out a system with AI for our repair company where it will create a letter, spin the letter, so that way it's completely different, unique, and send out the letter all on its own without any human intervention. So I would say, like, I've definitely used it heavily. Not quite as much as maybe some people have already, but it's definitely going to be a very large part of most businesses. And I think if a lot of business men or businesses in general aren't at least looking into the possibilities of it, they're going to fall very, very far behind.
Yeah.
Because now they got so many crazy AIs. It's unreal. Like, you you can honestly almost have a conversation on the phone with an AI. Like one of my friends showed me this project they're working on where the AI will call you like a salesperson and have a full-on conversation and respond to everything you say as if it were a normal salesperson, and the other person online has no idea that they're talking to an AI robot.
Yeah.
They think it's a real person that they're talking to.
I know this is not the normal nonsense portion of the podcast that we do, but I saw a video where like he was talking about how him and his son have a like a code word or something or whatever, because there was an AI who used a voice that was similar to his son's and like tried to have a conversation. He was like asking for money or like this crazy like scam artist stuff.
My
I'm like,
family does that.
that is ridiculous.
We have something where if someone calls and they ask for a certain thing, there's a code
Yeah.
word in the family that
So
it's
they
like,
they got it on the thing, and he asked them. It was like a random question with a word in it, but it didn't make any sense, and then it just hung up. I was like,
That's
damn,
wild.
that is. Be careful.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean,
Good and bad with everything, with all the AI stuff.
yeah, there's a lot of, now they call them like deep fakes,
Oh,
where
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like they can look like you, they can talk like you, they can sound like you, down to almost the minuscule details that you would think a person has, and it's cool but scary at the same time.
Scary?
Because yeah, I mean, there's
Personally, but really cool business wise.
yeah,
As far as
I mean,
how
it's-
you could utilize for the marketing aspect and all that stuff. Not maybe specifically, send voicemails to potential clients in their voices, but
yeah. I feel like a lot of people are starting to just name everything AI. If they had a system inside their company that automated things,
yeah.
oh, it's AI. And it's you just rebrand it so that you sound like, oh, we're up to date, we're cutting edge, all these things. It's like, no, your data set just automates itself so it can simplify down to something at the end. Like this is,
Yeah,
we
you-
can do this with an
yeah.
Excel spreadsheet.
You finally, it's called, you systemized your business for yourself.
Yes, yeah, very much
Yeah,
so.
100%. I mean, it was the same thing as the whole crypto thing. I mean, back when I was still in college, I think it was like 2017, 2018 when crypto was really starting to come out. That's when I was really into trading. But companies like Kodak, who are picture companies or photography or whatever they do now, if they changed their name to something crypto or said that they were going to utilize blockchain technology, their stock went through the roof. And so it's kind of like the same thing with AI. Like people are just going to try and jump onto the wave, and then eventually something else will come around and they'll jump on that wave. And that's kind of how it goes is, just one thing after the other. People are going to jump onto the next trend and try and ride it for whatever money they can find.
What are those? We're going off on a tangent, but what are those like you can buy like the sports cards,
The
but it's
NFTs?
virtual, an NFT. There's a title company out there that like when you close on the house, they give you an NFT of your house.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
That's kind of cool.
yeah, it's kind of
Seems
cool.
over
Yeah,
the top.
yeah, but I mean like, it does. I want one in my house, especially if you built your house.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of NFTs are
It's cool.
great.
Yeah.
Like the blockchain, great technology. I mean, on a side note, I wish we were using blockchain for like just voting in general, because I mean, you can't like the blockchain ledger you can't mess with.
Yeah.
Like it is what it is, and that's it. Like I mean, there's so much good in that technology that we could use it for that we don't. It's mind-boggling to me. But
We will eventually.
I think
when the government
eventually.
figures out how to make money off of it, then
yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of other things like, especially I guess in the credit space, like CBDCs, which is what is
Central
banking digital currencies. That's a little more scary. Like I don't want the government to use it for that, because the CBDCs like takes your freedom away. Like have you ever seen the movie? I think it's called like Time or something with Justin Timberlake.
Yes,
Yep.
with the clock on their
Yeah,
arm.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost the same type of thing. Like if you don't use it, they can take it away from you, right? So once they have the CBDCs in place, I think they're working to ban them actually because of it. They can essentially control everything. It's just now a digital number, which money already is, but to the point of where they can put time limits on it. They can track and see everything that you're buying, like just with say guns, right? I mean, touchy subject, but people who say use CBDCs or anything else go buy a gun, they could block those transactions if they have control of the money supply in that sense. And so same thing with AI. Everything that is created in this day and age can be used for good or bad. It's just how is it going to eventually be utilized at mass scale.
Which, if I understand with the CBDC, I think part of the idea is you'd be overhauling the banking industry as a whole.
Yeah.
Because like if you bank with Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, it's like you can go purchase something and it's run through the account that goes through that bank. So there's a level of insulation between the central bank that we have currently being able to see what we have. So there's warrants and all those things. But if we put it more in a blockchain sense that is monitored by a central bank, that's when we start to have issues. And I think that slides into stuff with social credit scores and things like that. But my assumption is that there's it would be removing that the layer of insulation that in some ways our banks provide for us currently.
It's just, the government, they're fixing one problem just to ultimately get even more control of everything else. Let's be honest.
Yeah. It's all a control game. Like that's ultimately what it is. And, if they can find some, especially a way to control the money supply, they already do. They print money like literally there's no tomorrow. But even with CBDCs, if they have control of that, like I said, they can see everything you do and also control everything you do.
Dude, there's your next marketing campaign. Don't let the government control what you can buy. Let me help get that off your credit score.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
There you go.
Anyways, let's get back to the real stuff.
When we were looking at your social media earlier to try and kind of prep for tonight, and it seems that you're still pro using credit and debt inside of business and things of that nature. So just wanted to pick your brain in terms of, you've got people more like if they're in the Dave Ramsey camp or in other camps where it's like, hey, we're completely debt averse, trying to do things cash based. And then you get to see your companies interact with people who have completely mismanaged credit and debt in their personal lives. So how would you present to someone like, hey, the greater consumers at large, we've got $1 trillion worth of credit card debt in the country right now. Obviously, things are out of control, but it's just because people are smacking their hands with a hammer doesn't mean that we ban all hammers. So It's like, if you were to say, here's how we need to treat this tool, where are you starting with all of that?
Man. So, as far as like credit goes, it's a double-edged sword, right? It can be good for helping scale businesses and do things that help push your life further, but obviously it can hurt you pretty badly, which it has burned most people, because I would say like they don't understand how to utilize it correctly. So like when people get a lot of credit or have all these credit cards, they're going out and purchasing liabilities. So they're going out purchasing the Louis bags, purchasing the Gucci bags. Personal things that don't bring money in, and it's usually just for to show people you don't even like that you're cool, right? Or post something on social media or whatever. Just something that doesn't do anything for you except make you think you look cool. And now I would say like using credit in the right sense. So there's obviously good debt, bad debt. Bad debt is what I just talked about, where they're all tied around liabilities. Good debt is where you're utilizing that credit to purchase assets, purchase things that are going to bring you more money and more income that are going to allow you to live a better life. So like how do you get a house? Credit, right? Debt. Grant Cardone has billions in debt because he has all this commercial real estate. He loves debt, right? Because without it, without the banks, without that debt, without the credit, he couldn't own all of these commercial buildings and real estate properties that bring in tons and tons of cash flow. And so, like I said, knowing how to utilize it correctly is, I would say, the most important thing. Because
for general population, do you think that becomes the big stumbling block? Because we can look at people, if it's Cardone or is it Robert Kiyosaki, and people who do advocate for leveraging debt, but that seems to be in a business sense. And there's also, I think, one of the things that people think, if it's in the Dave Ramsey camp versus the Kiyosaki or Cardone camp, that they kind of talk past each other, is the risk factor that's involved. So guys who are playing with money at that level, buying real estate at that level, there's a risk factor that's calculated into those equations, whereas on the personal finance, where it seems like a lot of people who look at from the debt averse side, they say that's where things are missed, and when people have the blind spot to the risk, they start purchasing more liabilities. Do you think that's a big factor in terms of, hey, personal credit should really be, that's something you don't want to touch as often, because the bulk of what people buy with that are the liabilities, compared to you, general population doesn't understand how to purchase assets with the credit that they have available.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it comes down to the just academic system in general. Like, we're never taught how to file taxes, what to do with money once we have it. Like, most people don't even, like I said, most people don't even know their credit score. They don't know what's on their credit report. So how are they going to, if they don't know their credit score, know how to utilize the credit that they're given? You know, they're just kind of usually given it. And if, you know, you're in the Dave Ramsey group, credit's bad, don't use it, pay off all your debt, blah, blah, blah. Because they understand that they use credit to buy the liabilities. So like when you're in the, say, Kiyosaki, Grant Cardone group, I would say you're more apt to buy those assets, whether it's an online business or you're utilizing it to do a house flip or something that is going to bring you income. So the great thing with a lot of credit card companies is the 0% interest they'll give you, on new cards. And so with that 0% interest, if I say have $20,000 and I can turn that $20,000 into $25,000 before the interest hits, I just pocketed $5,000 without having to use my own credit or my own cash, which I can save for a rainy day. And so in essence, that's really what credit is for, is to, one, leverage money that you don't yet have, because trying to, especially run businesses, but get ahead with just the cash you have in your account is extremely tough, especially if you're working just a normal job with, say, minimum income, and you're also having to come out and, just like for me, example, when I was living in SoCal making $3K a month, I couldn't get ahead. I couldn't even start a business with the money that was left over after I had paid all of my rent, utilities, and etc. I actually had to use credit to get into the mentorships, to start the business, to, get things moving forward. And so obviously, yeah, like when you're playing with fire, you can get burned. People can over leverage themselves, even on the business side. And I would say, like, the great thing about credit is with the consumer laws that are in place, like, there are things that protect you. Like bankruptcy, for example, the average millionaire goes bankrupt 3 times. And so it's a cat and mouse game of learning how to use it correctly without getting burned. And sometimes things just don't go your way, like 2008 housing crash. Can't predict that. People lost a lot of money. But if someone were to say had used credit to purchase those assets and then claim bankruptcy, well, they're safe. But if they had used all of their cash to do that instead, now they have absolutely nothing. And they have to restart from zero. So, credit in a sense protects you when you're buying those assets from having to use that cash. But, cash is king in the sense of you need to protect it. And it's very, very hard to grow and scale a business when you're only using cash.
Yeah. That's where I kind of put them, like the Dave Ramsey stuff, like geared more towards like consumer personal stuff. And then it's like, if you really want to grow and scale, the big word is scale a business. It's almost you got to use like credit other people's money. You can't really follow that strategy.
I think a lot of times it would depend on the kind of business, and this is where it gets murky, right? Because we can all point to, we could point to Cardone, we could point to Frisella, who has no debt on his company, and both of them are billion-dollar companies. It's like, okay, which one's right?
Yeah.
Well, it's like they're both, like, neither one's maybe necessarily wrong, because there's a whole formula that they worked into with that. And I think the big thing is more, like we've talked about, when did we say the timing is most appropriate for someone to leverage debt? And that's inside more of a business or buying an asset, rather than how general people would be like, all right, let's get the new phone, get the new TV. Hey, Black Friday's coming up. We got to get the presents for the kids, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The asset thing.
Yeah. And I would say too, like, Andy Frisella's business is now debt free, but it took him a long time to get to that point. Because I know listening to his podcast, he had talked about when he started his first nutrition store. He and his brother Sal went to, I think, the local college campus, because at that time credit card companies would line up with tables, and they were filling out as many credit card applications as they could to get as much cash as they could or credit as they could to start their business and keep it running while it was growing and, you know, becoming what it is now. So in that essence, like, he had to use credit to get his business started and keep it running. But once he had enough cash coming in and cash flow to pay off the debt to make his business liability free, then that's great.
Yeah.
Right. But when you're first starting out and trying to do that, like, First Form wouldn't be what it is today if he hadn't gone out and gotten some credit to help him actually start it. And so, like I said, there's a point in every business that I think it's almost mandatory, unless you just have huge cash reserves to help get you through it.
What do you want with the? I mean, if you're going credit card going 10xing everything, you won't make enough money to fund it yourself. You have to leverage everything.
Yeah, and I mean, with real estate, like, they're two completely different businesses. Obviously, like, with real estate, you have to have the debt, but I mean, also with the debt, you can't tax debt. So when people say, like, oh, let's tax the billionaires, you can't. And the reason that you can't is because what they know that we don't, or how they live that we don't, is, say, Jeff Bezos and Elon are perfect examples, right? They don't live off the income that they get. Like, all of their net worth is in their stock options with the companies that they have built. Now, because they have those stock options, what they actually do is they go to the bank, leverage those stock options or their assets to acquire debt, and then now they live off the debt that they acquire from the banks, because you can't tax debt. So you can tax income, but if you're using whatever is coming in, especially on the business side, to pay off the debt that you have, you can't tax that because it's going towards debt. And so that's how the 1% live, is they utilize the debt so that way they don't have to pay taxes.
Yeah, which is could be a whole nother other podcast.
Yeah.
About leveraging your business for credit and debt and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, there's so many heads to the dragon of credit. It's like, it can be used for so many different things. It's just knowing how to use it correctly that most people don't.
If we were to try and bring it back, though, as far as if you have a recommendation, if you don't, that's totally fine. But we have someone, if they're making $60,000 a year, it's how would they leverage, in your mind, what's the preferred way for them to leverage debt to kind of help take their financial future forward? And if I were to almost put the constraint on it, where it's besides probably starting their own business.
I would say do a lot of research and find an investment opportunity that you 100% believe in. Because one thing, especially like with Warren Buffett, is he doesn't invest into things that he doesn't understand. And so, like, Hormozi is probably one of my favorite people to quote, but he was talking about how he had a conversation with Grant Cardone. He actually did, I think, a podcast with him. But when he was talking to Grant, Alex had a lot of money at the time to spend, and he was looking for the next thing to invest into. And Grant was like, "Oh, you got to buy commercial real estate. You got to, put that money into real estate, man. Like, because obviously that's what Grant knows." And so when I think Hormozi is actually a big fan of Dave Ramsey, which is wild to me. So just because he doesn't really use credit at all, but Hormozi didn't know anything about commercial real estate. He looked at the numbers, built a whole spreadsheet, and was still unsure about putting that money into it. But when he talked to Dave Ramsey was like, you put most of your money into the things that you know. He's like, what do you know? Business. Okay, well, 80% of your portfolio should be in business. And that's what Hormozi did. That's how he started acquisitions.com, is he knows business like the back of his hand, and so that's what he's going to invest into. And so I would say it's the same thing for the average everyday person. Do you know more about real estate? Do you know more about the stock market? Do you know nothing at all? Cool. Don't do anything. Learn, figure it out until you completely understand something, then go acquire the capital needed with credit to invest into it. So that way you don't have to use, say, your hard-earned money, especially if you're a W-2 employee. You're the highest taxed person in the entire United States.
Yeah.
So don't use your tax money to go invest into something, because if you lose it, then you're really in trouble. Right now, you're almost homeless. So it's like use that credit to invest into something that you absolutely know or have a good feeling about. And then, if that goes south, well, you still have your cash and there's laws to protect you, from really being hurt by it.
I feel like at the end of the day, it comes down to education, and that's what a lot of the general population does not have in the financial arena, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing too is like there's so many, people on like Instagram pushing stuff. And I've seen a lot of people lose a lot of money. I mean, even I've been a victim of it. Like, you trust people that you think are trustworthy and you get burned. Like it's part of it. But, for the average everyday person that just has, the everyday job and doesn't really fully understand everything, it's tough because many people can think that they know what they're talking about or be persuaded into something that sounds really, really good and put their money into it and, get duped.
Yeah.
So
that's why, because we're like our team, we're I don't know if we can say that on the podcast. Yeah, we're Ramsey certified, so we're one of their ELP for real estate agents.
Yeah.
So the one thing that like, if you want to grow and scale a business, attack something you want, would you recommend somebody trying doing that with a lot of debt? Like already I'm not talking about personal debt. Mm-hmm. It's like, I got, all these things. I got the mortgage. I got to pay off student, 80, 100 grand in debt. But it's like, but I really want to run this business kind of thing. But they want to, obviously pay some of that stuff off. The Ramsey stuff is perfect for it's like a starting point. It's like you have already have a lot of debt. How do I get rid of it? And how do I, without getting any, it's a really good starting point for people who have a lot of debt, and they're not doing the job they love, but they want to kind of do something else. Mm-hmm. And then, so it's and through have you ever taken one of his courses, like the FPU and stuff? Because there's a little more to it, but it's I tell people, it's yeah, you kind of want to do it. It makes sense. Is it the best way? I don't know. But just the process to go through that is the biggest thing. You learn how to, which you should have learned in schools, is how to properly use your money that you have, and then put it in the right places. Because if you get a lot of credit, they give you a lot of money, but you haven't learned how to put it in the right places.
Yeah, I mean
that's the fire.
That's essentially the main point, right? Is knowing where to put it. Warren Buffett sits on billions and billions of cash just to wait for the perfect opportunity to invest a majority of it into what he knows is going to succeed. And so it's kind of the same thing with people. It's wait and don't jump on the first opportunity you see, especially with a large amount of credit. Know what you're getting into before you even do it. Because, for me, as crazy as it sounds, it's the way I got out of debt was getting into more debt. But that was because I had gotten more debt to utilize for the good debt that brought me in more money, brought me in more assets, brought me more knowledge. So that way I could utilize that now income to pay off the bad debt that I had. That was taking money out of my account.
But like that said, it's getting educated. Mm-hmm. You got educated before you made that decision. You didn't just go watch a 2-minute Instagram clip and then go...
Yeah,
and apply it.
Yeah, and I would even say if you don't know what to put the credit in, but you have it, go put that money into knowledge, acquire a skill, something that seems valuable. Go learn how to use these AI tools, how to code, how to do whatever is somewhat in the trend or possibly in the future trend. Because the one thing nobody can ever take away from you, and the reason that, like I said, average millionaire has gone bankrupt 3 times. The reason they can go bankrupt 3 times is because they already know how to get back to being a millionaire because they've gone through that path. Typically the time it takes somebody their first time to become a millionaire is about twice as long as it takes them to get back because they've already seen the path. They already know what to do. They now know what not to do. And so with that knowledge, it's you can't take that away from them. So go put that money into something that's going to make you more valuable as a person in general and utilize that knowledge now to either get into an investment you fully understand, start your own business, or get a better job. There's a ton of ways you can do it besides just investing it into cryptocurrency or something that seems flashy for the time being, like go put it into a course or knowledge or a mentor.
Unless you're that first wave of crypto and sold at a peak.
Yeah, then
I feel like those people accidentally fell into that one.
yeah, that was for sure an accident.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like at the end of the day, the way my brain processes it is it's all risk, right? Because if you get into something without knowledge, that's
So
risk.
how do you prevent risk?
Right. That's
Education, knowledge.
yeah. And then on the financial
Yeah.
side too, it's like, all right, limiting the amount of personal overhead that you have to even pursue some of those options. So it's because for the people who are looking at the things that are in front of them, it's like, all right, you can start with the uninformed optimism, but it's like things start going sideways when we start to move to in the uninformed pessimism, and it's like, all right, that's the danger zone. So start with reducing risk on the knowledge side, and if you can start even that's where I feel like Ramsey works a lot for general pop, where it's like,
Yeah.
hey,
It's smart too.
get your house in order before you start doing any of this extra stuff on the side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for the general population, I mean, being debt free is great. I mean,
Yeah.
most people are not debt free, right? Like I think average net wealth is very low. I
Yeah.
can't remember the exact number, but
Well, like
I mean-
one of the steps is you pay off everything except for your house, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean the theory is that the less monthly payments you have to pay, is the more money you can save.
yes.
You
Well,
know, which also in your case is more money you can save, because then once you get to the last of his baby steps, the more you can invest in.
Mm-hmm.
So you can invest the money that you do have, and then boom.
yeah, and I think it's
both systems are about leverage. It's just when
Yeah,
you're
or
applying
just
the
do
leverage.
both.
yeah. I mean,
Use the money that you do have, invest it, and then also now the money you do have, leverage that into getting out business credit and start
Yeah.
building something.
yeah, business credit's a whole nother topic. But I mean, if you can get yourself debt free to say you have like 2 cars and like all these expenses, if you can slowly pay those off and then still have those payments, say instead of going towards a car, going towards your ETF fund or something that is going to actually invest that money long term, like the S&P 500, then you don't see that money, so you can't spend the money, and then it's working for you in the back. And that's
Exactly.
a little bit of the, I think, Dave Ramsey / Robert Kiyosaki stuff, where it's like, hey, just because you paid it off doesn't mean you should keep that money and go spend it now.
Exactly,
Like,
yeah.
go put that, take
It's
the money out of your
process.
account right
If
away.
you put time and effort into it, you're not going to just throw it away. I mean, like the jackpot winners. They're most of them are a lot of the schmoes that buy $200 a month in tickets, and then they get a lump sum money and it's gone because they
Yep.
never went through that process.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they don't know what to do with it. You know.
I mean, don't get me wrong. When it's in the billions, I'll get a couple numbers just in case, but not the best investment. But it's fun.
Right. I mean,
I put that in the entertainment column with taxes,
entertainment.
which I don't even think they have that one anymore.
Yeah, we're gonna
Businesses.
say that you do that in Minecraft and move on.
I thought that's what we were talking about the
Yeah,
whole time.
absolutely.
We're talking about real life.
No,
Oh.
we weren't.
I just love the point, or the place in Wolf of Wall Street when his dad comes in, he's like $26,000 in sides. What do they cure cancer? It's like, yeah, they actually do cure cancer.
That movie has a lot of really good memes.
That's probably one of my favorite movies of all time. Like,
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And they just put it on Netflix too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, in Minecraft they did. Yeah.
yeah,
Only because I forgot that we have to say that.
That's our way of legally trying to cover ourselves.
Everything's
point.
in Minecraft. Yep.
yeah. Anything I say is not financial or legal advice either.
We'll just put that at the beginning.
Or at the beginning, everything he says is true. Do everything.
Do what I say, you'll retire a millionaire.
Yeah. Right. Guaranteed.
All right, we've crossed the hour mark, so we've got a couple quick questions for you before we call it a night. What's the most impactful thing you've learned?
How to utilize credit, honestly. I mean,
Yeah, that's pretty easy.
I mean, there's literally so many things that I've learned over the last couple of years that could be answers to that question.
Is there anything random that just like was like, oh shit, that makes sense.
How to leverage other people to scale myself. Because, I mean, it's like, look at Amazon, right? You don't see Bezos driving a van around delivering boxes. Like, big companies and big businesses utilize other people to build them, right? Like you can't do everything as a business owner, so you should delegate as much as you can. And one thing that I just heard Hermosi talk about in one of his podcasts, which made a lot of sense, is like we leave our jobs because we want more freedom. And so we also want more control over our lives in general. But when you're running a business and you get to the point of having that freedom and that control, now in order to have your business grow, you have to relinquish the control and let people run that business for you in order to continue to grow and scale, because you're not going to be able to do everything yourself for the entire time.
What's your favorite movie? I think you
If
already
it
said that
wasn't-
one.
I mean, there's a few good movies. Wolf of Wall Street's really good. I love the other guys, Step Brothers, all the Will Ferrell stuff. What else? The Big Short's a pretty good one. I like that. Ocean's
one of my
11.
favorite.
There's a lot of good
Let me
movies.
ask you this: were those some of your top movies before you got into business?
Wolf of Wall Street was for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I got
I've noticed a lot of those movies, though, become more interesting when it's like you're like actually in it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like when I got in, like I said, I got into trading first before anything else. So Wolf of Wall Street kind of like led me down that path. But then going to like The Big Short and a few other things, I just loved that kind of mindset in general, and learning to trade first. I mean, trading is literally mental gymnastics. That will wear you down mentally quicker than anything, because that's all risk and reward. And you have to learn how to control your emotions and your risk to make money. And it's literally one of the hardest things anybody could ever do is day trade.
Oh, you also have to have one of those personalities where, like, those
Nothing
guys that
affects
they
you.
move really fast, but they talk really fast too, and they're always going like. I feel like I'm like,
on
you
speed
probably
all day."
trade, yeah, because
Yeah.
you're in front of your multi-computers just trying to figure out the right times.
Yep.
Your first character strength that comes to mind.
Building relationships. I mean, I'm actually very introverted. It takes a lot of energy for me to really talk with people for a long period of time. But yeah, I mean, I'm very good at still building relationships with people. And I think authenticity and transparency is a thing that not a lot of people have these days. And so I think that's why I'm able to build a lot of relationships that I do have. Because of the introverted nature, it's easier for me to just be straightforward and talk to people in a direct manner. But communication is also my biggest weakness too, because I have a tendency sometimes when, say, things aren't going my way or I'm feeling mentally drained to kind of retract and hide from the world, because like I said, I don't always like to talk to people. And so,
Yeah.
trying to balance that, especially as, running a business, because it's such a communication game. I got to talk to my employees. I got to talk to the clients. I got to talk to the customers. Can be mentally draining, but at the same time, like, relationships are what are going to get you far in life too. So
Your go-to gym pump-up song or artist.
oof, there's some good ones. It depends on the day. Usually when I like to lift, especially heavy, I'll listen to like
PR music.
PR music's like Slipknot or something around Linkin Park. Yeah, I mean, I like the heavy metal stuff, but the Hum, that one's a good one. So just depends on the day.
Is that like a band or something?
No, the Hum is the Wolf of Wall Street, where it's going.
Oh, okay.
Where can people follow what you're doing or reach out to you?
At my Instagram handle at Sean David Clark. That's pretty much where I have all of my stuff and where people can find and get a hold of me.
Cool. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Cool. So until next time, hope your hammer stays accurate, your Wi-Fi fast, and you work blessed. See you, everybody.